everybody, welcome along to episode 82 of Percussion Discussion. As always, I'm going to ask, please check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, our world famous YouTube channel, where you can find all of our interviews, where you can hear and see us talking. Please subscribe. It takes 2 seconds. And honestly, it helps us immeasurably. So if you could, that would be great. This way, it means you won't miss any of the upcoming interviews that we've got. And there's some really cool ones. So I wouldn't want you to miss them. If you prefer to listen on the go, all of our conversations are available in podcast form. These are free to download from Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if that's your thing, you know what to do. Please leave us a short review as well. Only needs to be a few words. And again, it really, really helps get the word out there. Thank you. On to today's guest. I was really thrilled to get this guy. Again, it might not be a name that you're familiar with, but the story is amazing, with some incredible sub-stories in there as well. A gentleman who is a great drummer, an incredible artist. He's made a huge career out of painting instruments, drums and guitars for the likes of Chad Smith, Nico McBrain, Alex Van Halen. The list goes on and on. He's teched for a lot of these bands. He's out teching for Tico Torres from Bon Jovi at the moment, but he's also played for lots of bands through drummers getting ill and what have you. He's played shows for ZZ Top, for Slash, and he's covered the last 35 or so shows for Aerosmith, and that's an ongoing thing at the moment. So an amazing story. It gives me massive pleasure to welcome the fabulous John J.D. Douglas.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, hey, it's a total pleasure. And you know, I know you're a busy man, so I really appreciate you squeezing me in like this. So it's kind of you, because I know you're looking very fresh-faced. I know it's 9 o'clock in the morning where you are at the moment. So
it's not my typical, what do you call it, like banker's hours or whatever, But yeah. No, I'm happy to do it and get my day started with a fresh conversation.
Yeah, hopefully so. You might not say that at the end of it, but I mean, you pretty much do. You do so much. You've got enough talent for like 10 people, never mind one person. And I mean that genuinely. For those that maybe aren't familiar with your name, and there'll be a few. Let's be honest.
Oh, there's plenty.
Yeah,
there's plenty.
Artist, drummer, drum tech. Have I missed anything off the list there? I mean, that covers so many,
Yeah. No, that's enough for this program.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, let's talk about what you're up to at the moment. You are a drum tech to some of the biggest bands, some of the biggest drummers in the world, and I know you're you're just starting. You're on tour with Bon Jovi at the moment, aren't you? Looking after Tico Torres, and I think, where are you in the world at the moment, JD?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Cool. So is this the beginning of the tour, or is this?
Yeah, tomorrow night's the first show.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. So there must be a great buzz in the camp then. Finally getting back to it,
Yeah, it's been a while, for all the obvious reasons. So yeah, it's good to be back and it's weird to be in a big, well, right now it's empty arena.
Sure.
And all that goes with that after, rehearsing and not playing shows and then rehearsing in small rooms. And then, you're in a big, it's been too long. So happy to be back in it.
I can't imagine how good it must feel, and there must be a real buzz amongst the band as well as the crew to finally get out and do it, after so long.
Yeah. Yep.
Are things, well, I know you haven't done a show yet, but are things drastically different? With COVID, it's not gone by any means. Are things going to be different for you, the way you work? And
oh yeah, it's still an adjustment, but it's what we have to do. Look, it's life has to go on. And life is more than just breathing in and breathing out and existing, getting out and being with people and going to a live show or to a movie or a Broadway play, or that's life, man. So whatever we got to do to get back to living, let's do it.
Yeah, hey, it's a million percent better than sitting at home watching Netflix for 2 years. Let's be honest, isn't it?
Yeah, but thank goodness for Netflix.
Other TV subscription services are available. But yeah, anyway,
Yes.
I mean, you've got, as I say, we've got a lot to talk about. So let's go back to the beginning, because primarily, I guess drums is what it's all about for you. I don't know whether the art came first or drums came
Yeah.
first, but yeah.
Yeah, I get that question a lot, which came first or what, but uh clearly at this point I go by what my parents told me,
Cool.
which was I was banging on pots and pans, before I could walk or talk. And so I think it's safe to say that drumming for me came first, and it's way more primal. And
Mhm.
I get it. What kid doesn't bang on pots and pans or things? I just never stopped. So um, that definitely came first, and it's like I say, way deeply embedded, and uh, long before I could even hold a crayon to even begin to draw or anything. So, but I am very fortunate that I get to kind of juggle both of them,
Mhm.
because they're it's it's both me, art and drums, music, drums specifically. Um, so it's and many times I combine them.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, drums came first. It's way. I'll always. I put it this way. I pretty much will always put down a paintbrush to pick up a drumstick. I wouldn't always do it the other way around. Oh,
Sure.
if I'm playing, oh hey, would you rather be painting? No, I'm good right now. I'm playing. So but I love them both.
Yeah, of course, of course. So,
Yeah.
I mean, can you remember where, your first memory of I forget drums, I mean, music. Can you remember watching or hearing something that you thought, yeah, this is for me?
Well, the infamous Beatles thing was before my time. So I had little things. I definitely would watch the there was a show. I don't know if it was over there or not, but here was Don Kirshner's rock concert, a network TV show in the 70s. Um, that it was what it was. It was just a live rock concert
Yeah,
by different bands, and I remember watching that and seeing bands that I never even heard of because I was just a kid.
sure.
But I was still just infatuated with live music, and certainly when I discovered uh, Kiss,
Yeah,
because for the obvious, the artist in me, back with when album covers were, you shop by album covers, we buy with our eyes.
yeah,
And here was, Destroyer or Kiss Alive, and these comic book creatures, that my thought was like, oh man, I want to draw those guys,
yeah.
and then of course I put the needle on while I'm, so again, the whole music and art uh, always coincided with me. So I had various moments, but the first concert I ever went to was Queen and Thin Lizzy opening up.
Oh, what a show!
Yeah, I mean, how you going to come back from that?
You don't.
Yeah, you don't. You go, I'm in.
Oh, I mean, I've never seen either of those bands live, sadly, and
Man,
I'm never going to. Let's be honest. I
right.
respect Queen. I know we're still doing it, but it's not the same, is it? It's not.
Well, no, but I love that they're still doing it, and I
Mm,
think Adam does a great
yeah,
job, and I'm glad they're still doing it. I'm glad they're reaching new audiences, and because ultimately it is about the music.
yeah,
Of course, Freddie. I mean, we all thought Freddie was irreplaceable, and he is.
yeah,
But I think they're doing a great job
sure.
carrying on.
Yeah, and he's certainly got an incredible voice. There's no
Oh
question
yeah,
there. It's just, yeah,
you have to.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Not anybody sings those, but
yeah.
I'm assuming. How did you actually develop to getting your first drum kit? How did that come about? Was it pretty soon after the pots and pans, or did you have to wait it out?
Um, I had to beg and plead. I was the baby of 5 kids.
Yeah.
No, none of my brothers and sisters played any instruments or do any art. So I was just like this freak that came along at the end. Well, my parents were like, "What? Who's this? What is this?"
Yeah.
But I just wanted to play drums, and so the only way, we didn't really have the money to do like private lessons or anything. So the only way I was going to learn drums, and I knew no other drummers,
Mm.
was to take band in public school.
Yeah.
So in, I think it was 5th grade or maybe 6th grade, you signed up, to be in band, and I was gung ho to do that. So of course, this every boy wants to play drums. So by the time I signed up and I was with my parents before school started with the band director, and he says, "We've got plenty of drummers," and he looks at me and goes, "You'd be good for, clarinet or something like that." And I was horrified. I may have even cried. I don't know, but I was completely devastated. And my parents, I think we left, and my parents said, "Wait in the car," and they went back in there. And I don't know what they said to the band director, but I was in percussion after that. So that was the first time that I remember my parents, not, I don't know if sticking up for me is the right term, because they're my parents. They probably always stuck up for me,
Sure.
but they went in there and went to bat for me because they knew I was driven to
Yeah.
play drums, and playing anything else was not an acceptable alternative. So yeah. Now they may have regretted that for the rest of their lives, because the house was never quiet after
No.
that.
No, it's the price you pay, isn't it, with having a drummer in the house? But so I'm guessing you went on to join, your own band as a teenager and gigging about, as we all do, and you get
Yep.
you get your musical education out on the stage, don't you? As simple as that.
Yep. Yep.
So what fascinates me, obviously, at this point, you've found your passion for art as well. When did the two? Because as well as painting canvases and all sorts of things, you customize. Well, I guess you call it customize instruments for rock and roll stars all over the world, don't you? It's as simple as
Yeah.
that. There's no.
Yeah.
How did that start? I mean, that's an amazing. To have the talent. A, to have the talent is incredible, but B, to have the foresight to go and do this I think is incredible, really amazing.
Well, thank you. It was like most things in life, quite unintentional. I had the little bit of talent, and I initially I had a 5-piece orange sparkle drum kit, like a no name brand,
Mhm.
orange sparkle 5-piece. And of course, as I got into Kiss or Rush,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh man, I got to have more stuff to hit. But again, I couldn't. This drum kit, I don't think even was a real brand, so it's not like, even if I had the money, which I did not, to order another kick drum or whatever, just
Yeah.
didn't. It wasn't possible. So I would just get whatever used drums I could find for cheap. So I think I got like a red sparkle kick drum and um, stuff like that to get more stuff. But because visually it mattered to me, I'm kind of like, okay, I can't handle a different colored drum here. And so the first thing I did was took my drums apart and wrapped them in chrome. It's called contact paper here, but it was basically self-adhesive uh, shelf paper for
Yeah.
like your kitchen or whatever. Really cheap,
Yeah,
thin vinyl.
it's like we
Uh,
call it sticky back plastic here. That's what we call it over here.
yeah,
Same thing, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Super thin, super cheap. But so I took the drums apart and I wrapped them all in this chrome, and boom, there they it had wrinkles in it. I did a terrible job, but on stage, 10, 15, 20 feet away, the
Amazing.
drums matched. They looked chrome. They looked cool under the lights. And, I'm like, okay, good to go. Anytime I got another drum, boom, I wrap it in the same stuff. And so that's started the whole, I wasn't intimidated to take a drum apart and make it look different. And then I would start painting my kick drum head with either just art that I liked or logos of the bands that I was playing in.
Yeah.
So uh, I certainly didn't invent that, but I don't, everybody, all of my drummer friends in high school and stuff like that were like horrified that I would paint on a drum head. It's like, what? Isn't that going to affect the sound? Or how it was like unheard of. And for me, it was, of course, I'm going to put, what am I going to stare at? Just a blank white thing? No.
Natural.
So, yeah, it was a natural thing. So, as time went on, I got older and got bolder with actually refinishing drums with paint, like a lacquer kit as opposed to a wrapped kit.
Yeah.
Long story short, I just wanted my drums
Yeah.
to look unique and cool. So I was playing in a band in Houston, Texas, called XOX, and we got very popular there. And so the guys from ZZ Top, who live in Houston, would come out and see my band play. This was the mid 80s, late 80s. And eventually I met Frank Beard, who at one of my shows, and he commented on the paint job on my kit. He's like, that's cool. Who did that? And I was like, oh, I did that. And he goes, well, man, do you ever want to paint a kit for me? And I was kind of like, well, okay. Never occurred to me, So I started painting drums for Frank with ZZ Top in the mid 80s, and I still paint drums for him today. And so and then once of course ZZ Top huge, and at this time huge, one of the biggest bands in the world. So they're out playing stadium shows and arena shows with drums that I painted, and the same thing would happen. Either opening acts or whatever would see Frank's drums and say, hey, who paints your drums? And he would give them my name. So before I knew it, I was painting drums, just word of mouth. Somebody saw what I did, and that's how it started.
That's incredible. And it's word of mouth is always the best, isn't it? When you can see
it is,
you can see the result and then say, well, I did it. And then, they know what they're going to get.
Yeah.
Now, what fascinates me, how do you, obviously you strip everything off. Do you paint onto a wrap or do you paint on the curved drum itself?
Yes. I paint on the wood curved drum. Yes.
That's insane.
Yeah. It's a different animal, Yeah. And it always depends on what I'm painting, if it's simple graphics or whatever, it's not a big deal. But if you're painting, a portrait, somebody's face on a curved surface, you got to take into account, the curve.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to take into account where the hardware is going to go. You got to take into account how that drummer sets. Obviously, I don't paint it when it's set up, or even when the hardware is on it. So it's like I got to know how they're going to set up, which way the drum's going to face when it's set up. Try not to put a lug on somebody's eyeball. You got to take it all into consideration as a whole. As what's this kit going to look like set up on stage? Because I want it to read together, but even though I paint each one individually, it's a lot of thought process.
Can't imagine.
To go into it,
Wow.
But I love it.
So you paint? I mean, what sort of paint would you use? Because obviously, I guess you don't want too much texture on the drum either.
That's funny that you say it. My first kit that I painted that was back at this time with the band XOX. I didn't know how to get the high gloss showroom finish that Yamaha or Ludwig or anybody got. I didn't know how to do this. Obviously, this was pre-internet. There was no information out there. I just knew that it was, a painted kit was called a lacquer kit. Still today, it's called a lacquer finish. This is a wrap finish. This is a lacquer finish. And so I thought, well, they use lacquer clearly, and I'm sure they did initially, but not anymore. So I searched out, lacquer. Automotive lacquer. I had heard somehow that it's like, oh, you need like automotive paint. And so when you go to buy automotive paint, there's no instructions in the can. It just says for professional use only. and that was not me. I was not a professional, but trial and error. And so the first kit I did, I intentionally did a textured finish because I thought, okay, well, I don't know how to get a showroom glossy finish. So I'm going to go the other direction. and do a textured finish, much like a, a an oil painting, like a abstract oil painting where the artist globs a bunch of paint on the canvas and there's this texture. I went for that on a drum. So eventually I learned what materials to use and how to get
Yeah.
high gloss finish. So trial and error, man.
Yeah. So now if you were to run your hand over a shell that you've painted, would it feel totally smooth, or would there be a
Yeah.
little bit of it'd be totally
No,
smooth?
it's yeah. Yeah, because I do the art, which I always say that's the easy. It is the easy part. It's the prep and the finish work where it's very labor intensive
Yeah.
and expensive, and all this stuff. But no, I put on whatever the artwork is. I do it by hand, and I always try to keep it as flat as possible. A lot of times that's airbrush. A lot of times it's regular brush or whatever. It depends on the job. But I always try to put minimal amounts of paint so you don't feel it. But it's then you like bury it in clear. Maybe 3-4 coats of clear automotive urethane. And in that, sometimes you put sparkle or pearl or whatever. It depends. So you bury it in clear, and then you hand sand it like 3 different times with 1,500 grit sandpaper, 2,000 grit sandpaper, 2,500 grit sandpaper. Very tedious. And then you buff it out on a high speed buffer, and it's like showroom Ferrari finish, high gloss, deep gloss, super smooth, mirror like, all that.
So very labor
You try to do.
Yeah,
Very labor intensive.
Yeah.
And I do it all. It's just me. So
Wow.
it's like every drum is like from start to finish, me.
So when you get asked to do something, is it kind of is it a good feeling, or is it a feeling of dread knowing that you've got to do it?
Well, it's I mean, obviously I love it because I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it.
Yeah, of course.
But it there are many challenges, so it's some guys come to me and they know exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And there'll be a bit of back and forth because basically if they have a strong vision, um, for instance, Alex Gonzalez from the band Mana. I don't know if you've heard
Yes.
of him.
Yeah.
I've been painting drums for him for 30 years. And he always comes with a strong idea of here's what I'm thinking. He'll send me some images or whatever, and we'll go back and forth, and I'll introduce my ideas, or okay, hey, what if we do it this way, or if I do this and that, and so the back and forth based on his concept and his idea or album artwork or whatever. And but then we do that until he's happy with what I'm saying, but I have to share his vision. I have to see what he's doing, because when I go to paint it, he's not there with me. He's not looking over my shoulder. He's not, and once you start putting paint on a drum shell and start doing a couple different shells,
You're committed.
It kind of takes up. Yeah. And it kind of takes a life on its own. It kind of speaks to me. I know that sounds pretentious, but it's kind of like, okay, I got a handle on this, but I have to, like I said, initially I have to share his vision in hopes that when it's all said and done, he looks at it and goes, yes, that's what I wanted, or better than what I was thinking, hopefully.
I mean, it's not only drums, it's guitars as well. I guess you'll customize anything if.
Yeah, once I learned how to do the process,
Yeah.
then it's like I started paint whatever. If paint will stick to it, I've painted golf clubs and scuba tanks and jet skis and Harley Davidson motorcycle tanks, and drums. But because I'm a drummer and musician, the drums certainly became more known for that. I think drummers were more comfortable. I speak their language, and like I say, I have to be able to know how this kit, that these 7 drum shells that you're just sending me, I have to know how that's going to be set up on stage, and not everybody knows that, but yeah, I've painted many things before I started painting canvas, which I do a lot now.
It just blows me away. I mean, look, I've been looking at lots of your artwork over the last few weeks, and it really is it's just incredible. And anybody that's watching this, have a look at your website. It's johndouglas.com, I think, isn't it, from memory?
Yeah. Yep.
Have a look. I mean, I'll put it at the end of the show as well, so people
Okay.
can find it easily enough. But stunning work. I
Cool.
mean, JD, just run us through some of the drummers that you've painted kits for, because it's pretty incredible, isn't it? You know, if you can remember all of them.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it started with. Well, actually, I made the connection with Frank Beard from ZZ Top first, but while those drums got ordered, uh, another long story. But I painted drums for Steven Adler
Okay.
while he was still in Guns N' Roses, while Guns N' Roses was like the biggest band on the planet. Uh, Somehow I made that connection, and I painted two kits for Steven Adler while he was with Guns N' Roses. And I don't think they saw much action because, unfortunately, he wasn't in the band much longer. Um, but let's see, Vinnie Paul. I did a couple of Pantera kits, and I did the Damage Plan drums, and I designed some stuff for him, some signature snare drums and stuff. Um, Chili Peppers. I did a couple kits for Chad, and a lot of kick drum heads.
Sure.
Again, before the digital age of printing stuff, I was doing it all by hand. So so for Chad Smith, the Chili Peppers, I did like the famous Octopus kit way back in the
Wow,
90s.
really?
Yeah, and a kit after before that, or I can't remember the order of things, but I did a couple kits for him. Like I say, a bunch of drum heads, Lynryd Skynyrd and Kid Rock and Seven Dust, and did a kit for Ricky Lawson for a Phil Collins tour. I did obviously Bon Jovi. I did the 9/11 American flag kits for the concert for New York in like 4 days or something. It was a very stressful deadline.
Was that
Obviously,
you?
Aerosmith.
Yeah. Was that you? Can I ask? Was that used purely for that gig, or was that?
Yes, yes, I did it just days before the event. Um, Tico played it, and then they auctioned it off for the charity because it was a charity event. And then I got a call shortly after that. I can't remember the time frame, month or a couple weeks, I don't know. But Bon Jovi was going to be doing the closing ceremonies of the Winter Olympics that same year, or could have been in January or something, but shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
And he wanted another American flag, so I painted the kit again. And yeah, I had a little more time, I think, and then that was played at the closing ceremonies of the Olympics, and then I think they auctioned that off for charity as well. I don't know where those kits ended up. I have no idea. But I remember seeing a little blip in Modern Drummer or something that it got auctioned off for some charity event.
Yeah. So you were up to
Yeah,
Aerosmith in the list, I think.
yeah, Aerosmith, obviously Van Halen. Um,
Everybody really is.
I'm
Everybody.
drawing a blank. Yeah.
Just incredible. But as well as this incredible talent, both as a drummer and as a great, and I mean a great artist. You started. I don't know, how did you get into the teching thing? That fascinates me as well.
Quite by accident. That was another. Because as drummers, it's like the worst part of the gig is having to set up your gear and schlep your stuff from the car up the stairs and set it up to just so that we can play for a couple hours. But so the thought of doing that for somebody else and not playing the gig was just like, what? Why? Who would want to do that? So. But in the early 90s, I was with a band called Kick Tracy out of LA. We put out a couple records, and it was a good bunch of guys and a good band. Just had the unfortunate timing that our first record came out when Nevermind came out.
Yeah.
And they were, even though I was from Texas, they were an LA band. And so, we were packaged like every other LA band before it.
Yeah.
And when Nirvana came out,
Yeah.
it was like a paradigm shift of everything that was, even though that it was our first record came out in 91 or something, and the next one 92 or 93 or whatever. Even though we were in the 90s, I think we're still viewed as an 80s hair band.
Yeah, kind of missed the
Just
boat a little
because,
bit. Yeah.
yeah. So that's just how we were packaged, and that's how we looked. And and I remember at the time I had, of course, my drums were custom painted, and one of them one of the very few wrapped drums I ever built I did for me, because I just saw this pink iridescent chrome thing that I took a hair dryer to melt the finish, and I made these drums. I had like a 28-inch kick drum, and then I remember somebody referring to us as glam, and I was like, what? We're not glam. And then I looked at my drum kit, and I thought, okay, well, I can see maybe how they, a pink chrome, but where was I going with that? What was I talking about?
I said, how'd you get into the teching? And you were talking
Oh,
about.
okay. So anyway, Kick Tracy, after the second album, we just kind of imploded under the weight of everything. And I went back home to Texas, and it's kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what to do. And at that point I had been painting drums for Frank, and he was a friend of mine, and he kind of knew what I was going through. And, not, to be honest, not coincidentally or not, I was also going through a divorce. So I was at a low point, and he goes, hey, well, why don't you come on? We're about to go on tour. Why don't you be my drum tech? And I was like, what? But I didn't have anything. I hadn't been in Texas for 2 or 3 years, and hadn't been home, and like I say, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I thought, okay, at least I knew the band and knew some of the crew guys now at that point, and I knew Frank's kit, because at that point I'd been painting them for
It's the main thing, let's be honest.
6 or 7 years. Yeah, 6 or 7 years or whatever. So I did it, and not even knowing what, but because I've been drumming my whole life, we basically tech for ourselves.
Yeah, of course.
Right. We had, it's problem solving and fixing things on the fly, or I try to get them hopefully tuned and sound the best for us. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to do that for you. I guess that's the gig. I don't know, So I did that, and I came home, and I thought, I don't ever need to do that again. Because let's face it, it's not creatively. I like to think of myself as a creative. It's not very satisfying, because the whole deal is like, do it the same every city, so that they walk in the building or sit down with the kid, and it feels exactly the same as it did yesterday in a different country. So it's all about redundancy and repetition and keeping it the same. So not that creative. But I came home, and I thought I never need to do that again. But for the first time, I had some money.
Yeah.
So it's funny how that, but I had, bills. I was, an adult, and you got to do adult things. And anyway, so that's how that started. And then, again, with painting drums for other people, and then other opportunities would come up to tech. And, I always considered myself, again, the drummer first, but it was just kind of happened.
Word gets round, I guess, and you want to use this guy, and
same thing.
Yeah. I mean, some of the players you've I mean, one of my favorite drummers is Alex Van Halen, bar none.
Oh,
and what a monster of a kit as well to look after. I mean, how's that experience? I mean, was it cool working with Alex?
Oh, it's still cool. I mean, even though I still talk to him all the time, and I hope he's not done playing. And oh man, a huge influence on me as a player, and aesthetically, like you said, all his over the top drum kits, very inspirational to me as a young player, and what I've kind of do with the drums. And I should also mention Myron Grumbacher of Pat Benatar had this amazing, that Japanese flag drum kit, and the camouflage kit, and the custom rack that Jeff Jonas designed for him. Those things all inspired me.
Sure.
But Alex Van, I love. First of all, I'm still a huge Van Halen fan. Just the band, the music, Edward, guitar, everything, and Al as a player, monster player. And so I had the opportunity, really like too early in my teching career, because I started with him at the end of 1997, basically 98. And I had only been teching for like 4 years at that point, but I had the opportunity to work for one of your heroes. It's intimidating. But whatever, however many 24 years later, I'm still, working for him, and to get to watch a guy like that play every night from my vantage point.
Wow, I can't
He's got the best seat in the house, but I got like the second best seat in the house, so to get to watch that, and obviously Edward and the magic between those two guys was incredible.
That's the word, magic, because it
yeah.
really, I mean, sadly Edward's no longer around, but there was something you couldn't explain, wasn't there, with those two guys,
Yeah, it's in the DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And a consummate, both of them, consummate professional. They loved to play, and they care about the music and the band. And, it's contrary to, certainly the image, if you will, especially in the early days of just, 24/7 party band. They certainly brought the party, but the band themselves care about the music and respect the talent that they've been given, and they want to deliver it to the best of their abilities, and they never ever stopped still, so I love that. Very inspirational.
Amazing stuff. And I mean, for example, I mean, this question could be to any of the drummers, or refer to any of the drummers you've worked with, I should say. But I mean, for example, Alex, is he a hard taskmaster, or is he quite easy to, I mean, the tuning thing always fascinates me. Do you tune, you said you tune to how you'd like it to sound.
Well, initially. That's not really the job. I got to tune
of course.
for them.
Yeah. I mean, is it, I'd imagine that's kind of a nerve-wracking thing to get used to.
It's very nerve-wracking. And when you go from guy to guy, like for instance, the extreme of Alex Van Halen in tuning, and Tico. And none of them are, there's no right or wrong. Obviously it's personal preference. It's the band, it's the context, it's whatever. But each guy we all do things dramatically different, in head selection and how the kit is set up, and then, how it's tuned, what kind of sound are they looking to hear back from. And then there's the monitors, and then when the in-ears introduced, in, front of house, it's a lot of elements.
Of course.
Obviously starting with, what does the drummer want to hear? So you got to figure out. And that was eye-opening when I first started working for Alex, because it was not what I was expecting. Excuse me. Everything's, he's got that signature snare sound, right? Everybody, that if I had $1 for every email or question I got about, hey, what's the secret to Alex Van Halen? I would not need to be working, but and I get it, because I'm a fan too. Yes, it is. They all want to know the magic of recipe of the drum, or the drum head, or the 42 strand snare wires, or the tuning, and of course all that matters. I'm never going to say that tuning doesn't matter, but since in the relatively short time that I've been with him, since 98, when I first walked into the first Van Halen rehearsal, there probably was 30 snare drums lined up behind the kit.
Wow.
And man, we went through every one of them during the course of rehearsals. I thought, oh my gosh, is the tour going to be like this? I'm going to be exhausted. This was like, but like Edward, Al is a tone chaser. He was just like he loved the process. And, we would try different head combinations and different drums. So over the course of my tenure with Alex, he's played, rosewood snare drums, hammered bronze, hammered brass, maple, even a carbon fiber we tried. Obviously the tried and true Superphonic, which is an aluminum shell. Every make, every shell construction and different head, they all sound like him.
Yeah.
They all do. And when I play his kit, it sounds like me, which really pisses me off. So it's just
Yeah.
and the guitar players are the same way. Working. I had the same experience. Working for Van Halen or even working for ZZ Top. Billy Gibbons is known for his tone, and everybody wants to play through his rig because they think they're going to sound like him. Well, guess what? They don't. It's in the fingers.
It's great. Because I always think with Alex Van Halen, he has a very signature bass drum sound as well. And I know he has very deep bass drums, but but from the very beginning, he's had that signature sound. Running with the Devil right up to, the latter releases, always had that. And again, it's an amazing thing. And it's something that always fascinates me with the tech inside. I mean, and I'm sure you mentioned about the monitoring. Do you get involved in the monitoring side as well? Are you do you liaise and
you're the liaison for sure. In various bands, like with ZZ Top, when I had been there for a while, I started mixing Frank's monitors. So he had a monitor mix and different engineers. I had another whole other console and stuff. So I would mix the show for him, and I do that here with Tico. That's a big part of the job. I think it's you got to know the music, and Tico's looking for different cues, either vocal cues or guitar or the keyboard thing or whatever. So it's like you gotta it's a lot of can be a lot of pressure. There's a famous saying, friends don't let friends mix monitors, because it's the hot seat. It just is. But even if I'm not mixing, I'm still the liaison. And there are the times where in the middle of a show, if something's not right, I get the heat. But it's not directed at me. It's like I'm going to relay that over to the monitor guy. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite part of the job, but it is part of the deal.
So would you rather mix monitors for your drummer then than have somebody else do it? Would you rather do it?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, sometimes it's like there is no correct answer, sir.
Okay.
Because when it's not me and my guy, whoever it is not happy, or if cues are missed, because if there's one monitor engineer taking care of the whole band, typically their allegiance is to the singer, but the drummer's like, we're sitting ducks, it's like we can't move, we can't get up and go over and say, hey, I need a little more of this or any of that, and the drummer's driving the band and needs to hear what he needs to hear to do the good job. And so if cues are missed because the monitor engineer is not paying attention, or they're focused over putting out fires for the singer or whatever, that's frustrating for the drummer, who then lets me know how frustrated he is. And, so there are times where I was like, just let me do it, because I'm not going to focus on anybody but the drummer, what they need, so, but then there are times where it's just like, boy, I'd like to just go back to just being a drum tech and just watching, making sure nothing happens. I don't want to think about who's playing lead on this coming song and is this the one that has the keyboard break? You gotta, I don't know.
It's fascinating.
It's a challenge.
it's fascinating for us to hear, because obviously a lot of people watching this won't have obviously done what you've done, and to hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were, I think is incredible to get like a little insight of what happens. I mean, let's be honest, we don't see this when we're sat in the front or stood in the front watching. We don't see any of this going on. We
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
occasionally see things at like a bit of a, gesture,
Yeah.
but that's it. We
Yeah.
don't see what's going on, and I think it's
Right.
really interesting. Now, obviously, as well as the teching, as well as the art, as well as the drumming, you've played for some of these bands as well. I mean, I've got you've done. I think I've got this right. 3 shows sitting in for Frank Beard. Is that right with ZZ Top?
Yeah. 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 Back in early 2000s or something like that. We were in Europe, and the night before a show in Paris, Frank had appendicitis emergency. They took him away in the stretcher at like 2 in the morning or something. So yeah, I got that phone call at like 2 in the morning from initially from a crew guy, which I thought was a practical joke,
Of course. Yeah.
So because that's how we get through life. And he called me back and tried to convince me that it was legit. And I hung up and said, some choice words. And then Billy Gibbons called me and convinced me that it was real. So let me tell you, when you get a phone call at whatever 2 a.m. telling you you're gonna play drums for ZZ Top the next night, you don't go back to sleep.
No, I was going to say that's the last one to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I did 3 shows with ZZ, which was a thrill, and a lot of
No.
a lot of pain at the end of the first show, because I just hadn't used that in a while. I hadn't played a show in a while, and so to get jumped into that. So, but yeah, I did that, and then a few years later, it happened with Slash on his first solo tour. We were in Russia, so I played 2 shows with Slash and his band. So, which again, all this is surreal to be playing these songs that I've heard all my life on the radio or something, and then all of a sudden, I'm playing "Sweet Child of Mine" with the guy with the top hat, with no notice. That one's about that. I got to call it about noon on show day to play that. Now that was unusual because the drummer didn't get sick. The bass player had a detached retina and had to fly home. And Brent Fitz, the drummer, who is crazy talented and plays everything, he told Slash, he said, "Hey, we can do this show. I'll play bass. We'll get JD to play drums. We can do this show." And somehow Slash is like, "Okay," So I'm playing Fitzy's kit that I had painted for him, oddly enough, a few years earlier, and Fitzy's playing bass. So that was kind of cool, but weird, playing. And there's the drummer playing bass, who in the. So yeah, we did 2 shows with that.
Well,
and
can I ask about that one, JD? Right now,
Yeah.
you obviously, I'd imagine, as you said, you were playing some Guns N' Roses tunes, but I'm sure there was other stuff going on as well. Now, did you know the set well enough straight away just to go, yeah, I can do this, or did you have to do some research? Because
I mean, there was no time to do on that one. That was the first, his first solo album, first tour, and that was the end of that summer. So we've been out there for a couple of months. So I had probably heard, I don't know, 20 shows, maybe a bit more of shows of this new music. So I had, I think most of us probably, if we listen to a song over and over, whether we think we're learning it or not, I was never intentionally learning the songs, but I'm listening and I'm paying attention every night. So it's just kind of, I'm absorbing the tunes. So that one, Slash, who is another consummate professional, he came in and we basically played the whole show as a sound check, as a rehearsal. And it was hot too. I'll never forget how dreadfully hot it was in summer in Russia. And this venue was indoors, and I don't think they had any air conditioning or a fan. It was hot. And I just remember rehearsing like the whole show. And then I thought, I got to do this again in like an hour or whatever, because I was completely drained from the heat and from obviously the physicality of the show and everything. and somehow you just dig deep and do it. So that one was, so we played the show, and then of course I had the added benefit of Fitzy there, who would cue me on, kind of let me know,
Yeah. Good eye
you
contact.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, just that language of
Nod.
yeah, so yeah, so yeah, it was good, it was cool, and
Just
then yeah, and then of course it happened again a few years later now with Aerosmith, so it's
yeah.
been it's been quite a ride. I've
I mean, with Aerosmith, you've done a lot of shows, haven't you?
done a lot of shows, 35 shows.
And is that an ongoing thing, or is the situation, and I don't want to,
Um,
because yeah, I don't want to drop anyone
yeah,
in it, but
well, it's a it got a bit sticky, and I love those guys, and Joey Kramer's, whew, rock legend. These are all big shoes that I've attempted to fill, you know. Um, and so Joey, when we just announced um, all the Aerosmith shows this year, and Joey's taken a hiatus this year, so I'm playing with Aerosmith this year, which I'm thrilled. I wish it was under different circumstances, or but um, Joey's a great guy, and again, it's like I'm going to do my best to
of course,
fill those mighty shoes.
it must be. I find it hard to imagine how it must feel. Obviously, you're working for Bon Jovi at the moment, working for Tico, doing this, but knowing that you're going to be out with Aerosmith, kind of doing what he does in, I don't know. It's such a weird situation,
it,
isn't it?
it's weird. It's weird. I'd already committed to this and was doing some rehearsals before I got the call for
Yeah.
Aerosmith. So yeah. Right now, ideally, I would be home woodshedding
Mm.
for the Aerosmith coming up, but I don't want to let Tico down, and I feel that I committed to it, and so, and believe me, the crew out here, is definitely like to wind me up, and it's but that, again, that's all part of the gig. That's how we get through the day, is poking fun at one another, and make it interesting. So yeah, it's a weird, still surreal to me to think
Must
that
be.
that I'll be playing with them again. And I played up until till the lockdown of COVID. So even though I did 30 some shows with Aerosmith, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and nobody's done anything since. So it's to have that come back. It's an honor, but it's still kind of surreal.
It must be such an amazing thing to look forward to, though. What you're doing now is incredible. You're in the biggest venues with arguably one of the biggest bands in the world, and then going on to play drums with another one of the biggest bands in the world.
I know, it's freaky. Just to hear you say that is like, how could
Yeah,
that be possible?
and
I don't
when
know.
this happens, are you treated? I'm not talking financially. I'm talking. Are you treated as an equal in the band? Do you stay in the same hotels? Do you travel the same with when you're out with Aerosmith, or is it
Yeah.
vastly
I
different?
mean, I'm not a band member.
Oh,
I'm
I
not in their hierarchy. But
yeah,
no, they were very great, very gracious, and I yeah, and spoiled me.
yeah,
I stayed in the hotels with them, and now most of the time we were doing the residency in Vegas,
yeah.
so there wasn't a lot of travel. Um, but yeah, I basically, you know, the drummer in the band, or
Oh,
playing drums for them, because Joey Kramer is the drummer in Aerosmith. So I'm just, again, filling those shoes. But they treat me very well, and respectfully, and I'm just there to fill the gap, provide the service
yeah.
as best I can.
Is it? I mean, are things cool with you and Joey? Because I'd imagine it was a difficult decision to make that as a as in being a friend of yours as well. It's like, hey, I've been asked to do this, and
Yeah, I mean, again, none of us knew where it was going initially. It initially, it the first time it happened in Vegas, Joey fell in
yeah,
his hotel room the night before, and jacked his neck and his shoulder, and so I got that call at like 3 in the afternoon on the show day. So it was like, oh my gosh, more, you know, um, that too was like we didn't even do a sound check. So the first time I ever played those songs with Aerosmith was like when the curtain comes up and I'm at the drums, and this again surreal to the nth degree. But so it was just daily, the Joey going to see doctors, and I wouldn't know until I was playing until in that afternoon. I would get a no, you're playing tonight. I'm like, okay, so and I didn't even have anything to wear. I went out to the merch booth and bought an Aerosmith shirt, and that's what I wore the first few times that I played.
You say you paid money.
Well, so I got it on the side.
Oh, you have the most incredible life / career. I mean, anyone watching this will be just that's the if when you're a kid at school, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
You've just listed everything that apart from being an astronaut, maybe that's it. The pinnacle. And I have to ask, do you give whoever's teching for you a hard time, or are you kind of quite cool with them?
Yeah, a guy named McGee is my tech, and he teched, oddly enough, he teched for Joey years before I did, and then he came back. So I'm like I'm not sure if I would want a tech for me. Not that I'm a tyrant yet, but I'm but I'm very particular, because I like to think that that's what makes me a good drum tech is I'm kind of meticulous, and I am a detail guy.
Yeah.
In my art and my playing and in my teching. So I think that's why a lot of drummers would hire me, because I'm not perfect, but I'm meticulous, and therefore I'm meticulous in how if I'm the player, how I'd want it done. So, but I'm also very hands on. So like with Aerosmith, like the band doesn't typically do sound checks or anything, but I do.
Yeah.
So I come down and do So I still, in some ways, I still kind of like I'm still kind of the drum tech, because I come down and play the sound check with the crew band. That I always used to do. And that gives me warm up. That helps me warm up, and I'll tune my drums if need be. McGee does a great job, but I can't help myself.
No.
I'm hands on, and I'm just gonna do a little bit and play the sound check with the crew guys, and then I go back to my hotel, and then I'll come back for the show. So but the first few times that I played for Joey is like I was a tech too. So I played those shows in Vegas, and then because I played the last two shows of the run, so I played the second show, and then I loaded out. So I was still sweating from the gig, still kept trying to catch my breath, and I'm taking cymbals off, and having just played with Aerosmith. So I've had a lot of weird moments.
JD, you have the most incredible career, and this has been, I think you're going to be number 82 by the time this comes out, and honestly, one of the most incredible and fascinating conversations I have had to this day. And thanks so much for doing it. I know, obviously, I think we can work out how busy you are from where you are at the moment. I'm sure you're waiting to get into the venue and sort stuff out. But thanks so much for giving up your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for listening to me babble on, and I appreciate it. Hope to meet you in person one day.
I do hope so. So look, thanks, JD, you gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. See you next time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Maddie.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.